In the vast, unforgiving expanse of the galaxy, where stars burned like forgotten promises and planets whispered secrets of ancient wars, there existed a realm known as Zerathia. It was a glittering empire of crystalline spires and ethereal lights, ruled by the iron fist of Baron Dravex, a being of immense power and even greater cruelty. His skin shimmered like polished obsidian. His eyes glowed with the cold fire of ambition, and his heart, if he had one, was as barren as the void between worlds. But even tyrants have heirs, and his daughter, Lyra, was the jewel he never truly valued. Lyra was a vision of otherworldly beauty, her long white hair cascading like a river of moonlight over her pale, flawless skin. Her ears, delicate and pointed like those of ancient elves from human myths, twitched at the slightest sound, and her body moved with a grace that could ensnare the soul. She often draped herself in garments of flowing silk and iridescent fabrics that hugged her curves in ways that spoke of both royalty and temptation, leaving just enough to the imagination to drive one mad with curiosity. Yet, beneath that allure lay a spirit fierce and unbroken, forged in the fires of her father's neglect. It all began on the eve of a grand alliance, when Baron Dravex sealed a pact with rival lords from the neighboring system of Velquar. To secure his throne against whispers of rebellion, he needed to eliminate any threats, even those from his own bloodline. Lyra had overheard his schemes, her sharp ears catching fragments of betrayal in the shadowed halls of their palace. She confronted him, her voice trembling not with fear, but with the raw hurt of a daughter scorned. "Father, how can you plot against your own people? Against me?" she demanded, her eyes flashing like distant supernovas. The Baron's response was swift and merciless. With a wave of his clawed hand, guards seized her, binding her with energy cuffs that burned against her skin. "You are a liability, child," he snarled, his voice echoing like thunder in a storm. "Your mother's softness weakened you. Better you fade into oblivion than tarnish my legacy." He exiled her to the forsaken planet of Iscaria, a desolate rock riddled with toxic storms and predatory beasts, where no ship dared land without peril. Stripped of her titles, her weapons, and her hope, Lyra was cast out like debris from an exploding star, left to die alone in the howling winds. As her shuttle plummeted toward the surface, Lyra's mind raced with a whirlwind of emotions, rage, sorrow, and a burning desire for vengeance that ignited something deep within her. The crash was cataclysmic. The vessel shattered against jagged rocks, flames licking the sky as debris scattered like fallen stars. She crawled from the wreckage, her body battered, blood glowing faintly blue, seeping from wounds that would have felled lesser beings. The air was thick with poison, each breath a dagger in her lungs. She collapsed against a boulder, her vision blurring, whispering curses to the uncaring void. "I will not end like this," she vowed, her voice a fragile thread in the chaos. But fate, that capricious weaver of destinies, had other plans. Not far from the crash site, hidden in the shadows of a crumbling ravine, lay another survivor of the galaxy's cruelties. His name was Kai, a human mercenary from the distant fringes of Earth's colonies. Kai was no ordinary man, tall and broad-shouldered, with tousled dark hair and eyes that held the stormy depth of oceans. He carried the scars of 100 battles across his tanned skin. He wore a rugged flight suit patched with makeshift armor, his belt heavy with gadgets scavenged from fallen foes. Humans like him were legends in the stars, tenacious, adaptable, and utterly unpredictable. They didn't just survive, they thrived where others perished, turning desperation into defiance. Kai had been stranded on Iscaria after a botched smuggling run, his ship sabotaged by rivals in a deal gone sour. For weeks, he'd eked out an existence in the wilds, hunting the planet's monstrous creatures with nothing but his wits and a plasma knife. He was valiant in a way that bordered on reckless, driven by a code of honor that said no one gets left behind, not even strangers. When he heard the thunderous impact of Lyra's shuttle, he didn't hesitate. Grabbing his gear, he sprinted toward the plume of smoke, his boots crunching over the ashen ground. What he found stole his breath. Amid the ruins lay a woman, no, a being like nothing he'd seen in his travels. Her white hair fanned out like a halo, her pointed ears peeking through, and her form, even in distress, radiated an allure that tugged at something primal within him. She was alien, yes, but her vulnerability stirred a protective fire in his chest. "Hey, you alive?" he called out, his voice rough from disuse, as he knelt beside her. Her eyes fluttered open, locking onto his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. Lyra, on the brink of death, sensed something in this human, a raw energy, a soul untainted by the corruption of her world. In Zerathia, Ancient rituals spoke of soul fusion, a forbidden bond where two essences merged to defy fate. It was a gamble, one that could consume them both, but desperation fueled her choice. With her last ounce of strength, she reached out, her fingers glowing with ethereal light, and touched his chest. "Share with me," she whispered, her voice like silk over steel. Kai felt a surge, a warmth that exploded through his veins like liquid fire. Visions flooded his mind, her memories, her pain, the Baron's betrayal. He gasped, collapsing beside her as their souls intertwined, weaving together in a dance of light and shadow. It was intimate, invasive, a connection deeper than any he'd known. Her essence mended his old wounds, granting him glimpses of alien knowledge, advanced tech, hidden star maps, the secrets of Zarathia's defenses. In return, his human tenacity bolstered her fading life force, pulling her back from the abyss. When the fusion stabilized, they rose as one, two minds in harmony, bodies separate but linked by an unbreakable thread. Kai helped her to her feet, his hand lingering on her waist a moment longer than necessary, feeling the curve of her hip through her torn gown. What did you do to me?" he asked, his voice husky, a mix of awe and confusion. Lyra smiled faintly, her lips curving in a way that promised mysteries yet untold. "I saved us both, human, and now you will help me claim what is mine." Her eyes sparkled with a newfound fire, the first spark of revenge igniting in the darkness, but beneath it, something else stirred, a pull, an attraction born from their shared souls, hinting at passions that could rival the stars themselves. As they huddled in the shelter of the ravine, the storm raging outside like a beast denied its prey, Kai scavenged what he could from the wreckage. He fashioned a crude bandage for her wounds, his fingers gentle against her soft skin, eliciting a soft gasp from her that made his pulse quicken. "Call me Kai," he said, trying to steady his breathing. "And you?" "Lyra," she replied, her voice gaining strength. She watched him with curiosity, this rugged human who moved with such purpose. In Zarathia, males were calculating and distant, but Kai's warmth was intoxicating, his touch sending unfamiliar tingles through her. As night fell, they shared stories by the glow of a makeshift fire, his tales of Earth's wild frontiers, her accounts of palace intrigues. The fusion allowed them to feel each other's emotions, his admiration for her resilience, her intrigue at his unyielding spirit, but danger lurked. The planet's predators, drawn by the crash, circled closer. Massive, scaled beasts with glowing eyes and razor claws slithered from the shadows, their roars shaking the ground. Kai grabbed his plasma knife, standing protectively in front of Lyra. "Stay behind me," he growled, his muscles tensing. Lyra, empowered by their bond, felt his courage flow into her. She summoned a flicker of her innate energy, her hands glowing as she channeled it into a barrier. Together, they fought the first test of their alliance. Kai lunged at the lead beast, his blade slicing through scales with precision born from years of survival. The creature howled, its blood sizzling on the ground. Lyra amplified his strikes, her mind guiding his movements with alien grace, turning his brute force into a deadly ballet. One beast clamped its jaws around Kai's arm, pain exploding through their shared link. Lyra cried out, feeling it as her own, and unleashed a burst of psychic energy that shattered the monster's skull. They moved in sync, dodging claws and tails, Kai's shouts mingling with her ethereal chants. By dawn, the threats lay slain, their bodies steaming in the toxic air. Panting, covered in grime, they collapsed against each other, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. "That was incredible," Kai murmured, his breath warm against her ear. The adrenaline faded, replaced by a deeper heat, their fused souls amplifying every sensation. Lyra turned to him, her pointed ears brushing his cheek, her gowned form pressing close. In that moment, amid the ruins, a spark of something forbidden kindled, revenge intertwined with desire, a human and an alien bound not just by survival, but by the promise of more. As they plotted their escape from Iscaria, scavenging parts to repair a hidden pod Kai had buried, Lyra revealed the depths of her father's treachery. "He rules Zarathia with fear, allying with enemies who would enslave our people, but with you, we can shatter his throne." Kai nodded, his eyes locked on hers, feeling the pull of her beauty and the fire of her resolve. Little did they know, this bond would lead them through stars and storms, forging a love as vast as the cosmos itself, where humanity's grit met alien elegance in a dance of vengeance and passion. The journey ahead was fraught with peril, but in each other's presence, they found strength. Kai taught her human ingenuity, rigging traps with wire and scrap, while she shared visions of Zarathia's opulent courts, where silken veils and whispered alliances hid daggers in the dark. Their conversations flowed like a river, laced with laughter at his crude jokes and her elegant retorts, building a bridge between worlds. One evening, as they worked under the dual moons, Lyra's hand brushed his, sending a jolt through their link. "You're kind. Humans, you feel so intensely," she said softly, her voice laced with wonder. Kai grinned, his fingers intertwining with hers. "And yours, so mysterious, so captivating." The air thickened with unspoken longing, the galaxy's vastness shrinking to the space between them. But escape wouldn't come easy. Baron Dravex's scouts, sensing the crash, dispatched drones to confirm her demise. The mechanical hunters buzzed overhead, scanners piercing the gloom. Kai and Lyra hid in a cave, bodies pressed together for warmth, hearts racing in unison. "If they find us," she whispered. "They won't," he assured, his lips close to her ear. In that tense hideaway, their bond deepened, emotions swirling like a nebula, fear giving way to comfort, comfort to desire. When the drones passed, they emerged stronger, ready to launch their pod into the stars, toward Zerathia and the reckoning that awaited. As the engines hummed to life, Lyra leaned against Kai, her white hair spilling over his shoulder. "This is just the beginning," she murmured. And indeed it was, a saga of betrayal, fusion, and a love that would defy empires. As the pod's engines thrummed with a low, vibrating hum that resonated through their bodies, Lyra's words hung in the air like a tantalizing promise, her breath warm against Kai's neck. The small craft lifted off from Iskaria's scarred surface, shaking off the planet's toxic dust as it pierced the atmosphere, leaving behind the wreckage of their old lives. Space unfolded before them, a velvet blackness dotted with pinpricks of light, but the journey was far from serene. Kai gripped the controls, his knuckles whitening, while Lyra sat close, too close in the confined cockpit, her thigh brushing his with every subtle shift of the ship. The fusion of their souls amplified everything, the adrenaline from their escape, the lingering ache of wounds barely healed, and now, an undercurrent of desire that simmered just beneath the surface. Kai could feel it echoing back from her, a mirror of his own growing hunger, making the air between them thick and charged. "We're clear of the gravity well," he said, his voice steady despite the way her presence distracted him. He glanced at her, taking in the way her white hair caught the dim glow of the console lights, framing her face like a luminous veil. Her pointed ears quivered slightly, sensitive to the ship's vibrations, and her gown, torn but still clinging to her curves in a way that seemed designed to tease, left little to the imagination under the low illumination. Lyra leaned forward, her hand resting lightly on his arm, sending a spark through their bond that made him inhale sharply. "Not entirely clear," she murmured, her voice a silken whisper that wrapped around him. Through their shared connection, she projected a faint warning, distant sensors pinging their trajectory. Baron Dravex's reach extended far, even in exile. His paranoia had seeded the stars with watchful eyes. "My father's patrols might detect us soon. We need to slip through the asteroid belt ahead. It's our best chance to mask the signal." Kai nodded, adjusting the course with a flick of his wrist, but his mind wandered to the intimacy of their link. He could sense her every emotion, the flicker of fear, the steel of resolve, and beneath it all, a curiosity about him that bordered on fascination. Humans were rare in her world, whispered about as barbaric yet unbreakable, and now she had one fused to her very essence. "Hold on," he said, as the pod veered into the dense field of tumbling rocks. The ship jolted, forcing her closer, her body pressing against his side. The contact was electric. He felt the softness of her breast against his arm, the heat of her skin seeping through the thin fabric. In the quiet tension of evasion, their conversation turned inward, voices low as if the void itself might eavesdrop. "Tell me more about your people," Lyra said, her fingers tracing idle patterns on the armrest, though he swore he felt them on his skin. "In Zerathia, bonds like ours are legends, ancient rites for warriors facing doom, but with a human, it's different. I feel your strength, Kai, raw and unfiltered. It's intoxicating." He chuckled softly, a sound that rumbled through their link, easing the suspense for a moment. "Intoxicating, huh? Back on Earth colonies, we'd call this crazy. Sharing souls with a stunning alien princess. Sounds like a Hollywood fantasy." His eyes met hers, lingering on the curve of her lips, the way her pale skin flushed with a subtle blue tint, a sign of her arousal, he realized through the bond. The pod rocked again, a near miss with an asteroid, and she gripped his thigh for stability, her nails digging in just enough to send a thrill up his spine. The danger heightened everything. Alarms blipped softly, proximity warnings, as Kai maneuvered through the belt, his human reflexes honed by years of dodging bounty hunters and space debris. Lyra amplified his focus, feeding him glimpses of Zerathian navigation lore, hidden eddies in the gravitational pulls, shortcuts through the chaos. But the bond worked both ways. He caught fragments of her thoughts, heated and unguarded. Images of his strong hands, the scar running down his jaw, the way his muscles flexed under his suit. It stirred something primal in him, making the cockpit feel even smaller, the air heavier. As they dove deeper into the field, a patrol drone locked onto them, a sleek, predatory machine dispatched from a nearby outpost. Its lasers grazed the hull, sparking shields that flickered under the strain. Incoming, Kai barked, banking hard. Lyra's hand flew to the co-pilot console, her fingers dancing over alien interfaces she jury-rigged into the human tech. Together, they fired a countermeasures burst, chaff exploding in a cloud that confused the drone's sensors, but it pursued relentlessly, closing the gap. In the midst of the chase, their proximity became a torment of temptation. Lyra's breath quickened, syncing with his, her body shifting against him as the ship twisted. "Kai," she whispered, her voice laced with urgency. "I can feel your heart racing, not just from the danger." Through the fusion, she shared a pulse of sensation, her own desire mirroring his, a warm wave that made him grit his teeth. He wanted to pull her into his lap, to explore the mysteries her form promised, but survival came first, or did it? The line blurred in their shared mind. With a grunt, Kai executed a daring spin, using an asteroid's gravity to slingshot them around, slamming the drone into the rock face. Explosions bloomed silently in the vacuum, debris scattering like fireworks. They were safe for now. The pod stabilized, drifting into calmer space, and the adrenaline crash left them both breathless, bodies humming with unresolved energy. Lyra turned to him fully, her eyes darkening with intent. "That was close," she said, her hand sliding up his arm, fingers brushing the nape of his neck. The touch ignited sparks. He could taste her emotions, curiosity turning to craving. In Zarathia, physical bonds were ritualistic, reserved for alliances of power, but this felt wilder, more human. Kai reached out, tucking a strand of her white hair behind her pointed ear, his thumb grazing the sensitive tip. She shivered, a soft moan escaping her lips, the sound echoing in his mind. "You drive me to distraction," he admitted, his voice rough, pulling her closer. The cockpit's confines forced intimacy, her legs draped over his as she straddled the space between seats, her gown riding up to reveal the smooth expanse of her thigh. Their lips hovered inches apart, breaths mingling. Through the bond, he felt her heat, her pulse quickening in places he ached to touch. "What if we explore this?" he murmured, his hand settling on her waist, feeling the curve that fit perfectly against him. Lyra's response was a slow, teasing smile, her body arching slightly into his touch. "In my culture, such fusions lead to deeper unions. But with you, human, it's unpredictable, thrilling." She leaned in, her lips brushing his in a tentative kiss that exploded through their link, fireworks of sensation, her alien essence mingling with his earthly passion. The kiss deepened, tongues exploring with a hunger born from shared peril. His hands roamed, tracing the lines of her back, dipping lower to cup her hips, eliciting gasps that vibrated against him. The ship's autopilot hummed on, stars streaking by as they lost themselves in each other. Lyra's fingers worked at his suit's fasteners, peeling away layers to reveal the hard planes of his chest, her nails scraping lightly, sending shivers. "Your skin, so warm, so alive," she whispered, her voice husky. Kai reciprocated, sliding the strap of her gown off one shoulder, exposing the pale swell of her breast. He kissed along her collarbone, down to the curve, his mouth hot against her cool skin. She arched, pressing into him, their bond amplifying every caress into waves of pleasure that built like a storm. But even in ecstasy, suspense lingered. A distant alert chimed, another signal, faint but persistent. Lyra pulled back slightly, her lips swollen, eyes glazed. "We can't stop now," she said, though her body betrayed her words, grinding subtly against him. Kai groaned, the friction torturous. "Just a taste," he replied, capturing her mouth again, hands exploring further, fingers slipping under fabric to find her most sensitive spots. She moaned into the kiss, her pointed ears flushing, body responding with an eagerness that matched his own. As they navigated the fine line between danger and desire, the pod hurtled toward Zarathia's borders. Lyra guided his touches with mental nudges through the bond, teaching him the erogenous zones unique to her kind, the base of her ears, the hollow of her throat, while he introduced her to human spontaneity, kisses trailing fire down her neck. Clothes partially shed, they moved in rhythm with the ship's gentle sway, building tension that promised release but held back, teasing the edge, hours blurred in the haze of exploration. Kai's mouth found her breast, tongue circling the peak, drawing out whimpers that fueled his own arousal. Lyra's hand ventured lower, stroking him through his pants, feeling his hardness pulse in response. "So strong," she breathed, her voice a mix of awe and need. The bond let her feel his pleasure as her own, doubling the intensity, making every stroke a shared ecstasy. Yet, the galaxy intruded. The alert grew louder, a Zarathian frigate on intercept course. "Damn," Kai muttered, reluctantly pulling away, though his body protested. Lyra adjusted her gown, her skin flushed, eyes promising more. "We'll finish this," she said, her tone laced with erotic promise. As he recalibrated the engines for evasion, their unfinished passion hung like a charged nebula, suspense building not just from the chase, but from the unspoken vow between them. Deeper into the void they flew, the frigate's shadow looming. Kai pushed the pod to its limits, weaving through nebulae that distorted sensors. Lyra leaned against him once more, her hand on his thigh a constant reminder of their heat. "Use the fusion," she urged, projecting strategies into his mind, cloaking techniques from her heritage. Together, they activated a makeshift shield, blending into the cosmic dust. The pursuit intensified, lasers slicing perilously close. In the adrenaline, their bond flared again, desire intertwining with fear. Lyra's fingers tightened on him, a squeeze that was both comforting and arousing. "If we make it," she whispered, "I want all of you." Kai's response was a fierce kiss, stolen amid the chaos, his hand cupping her face as the ship shuddered. They outmaneuvered the frigate by diving into a wormhole anomaly, emerging on the far side unscathed but exhausted. In the quiet aftermath, Lyra curled into him, her body soft and inviting. "Rest now," she said, but her touch lingered, tracing patterns that kept the erotic tension alive. As sleep claimed them, dreams merged through the bond, visions of tangled limbs, whispered moans, and a future where revenge and love burned as one. The stars watched on, indifferent, as their alliance deepened into something unbreakable, each moment building toward the storm that awaited in Zarathia. As the dreams wove their seductive tapestry through the fused minds of Kai and Lyra, the pod's navigation systems chimed a soft alert, pulling them gently from the haze of shared visions where bodies intertwined under alien skies and whispers of ecstasy echoed across vast nebulae. Kai stirred first, his arm still draped protectively around her slender form, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breathing against his chest. The cockpit's dim lights cast a soft glow on her white hair, which spilled like liquid silver over his shoulder, and he couldn't help but trace a finger along the delicate point of her ear, eliciting a sleepy murmur from her that sent a fresh wave of warmth through him. But the moment of peace shattered as the viewscreen flickered to life, revealing the glittering expanse of Zarathia's orbital defenses, a web of satellites and patrol ships that guarded the Empire like jealous sentinels. "We're here," Kai whispered, his voice thick with the remnants of sleep and unspoken longing. Lyra's eyes snapped open, her pale skin flushing with that subtle blue hue as she disentangled herself, though her hand lingered on his thigh, a silent promise amid the rising tension. Through their bond, he felt her surge of emotions, excitement laced with dread, a curiosity about what lay ahead that mirrored his own thrill-seeking nature. Zarathia loomed below, its crystalline continents shimmering under twin suns, a world of opulent spires and hidden horrors where her father's rule had twisted beauty into tyranny. "The defenses are tighter than I remembered," she said, her voice steady but her pointed ears twitching with unease. "We'll have to slip through the shadow of the outer moon. It's riddled with smuggling routes I knew as a child." Kai punched in the coordinates, his human ingenuity blending seamlessly with her alien knowledge, the pod dipping into a stealth trajectory that hugged the moon's cratered surface. The maneuver was risky, one wrong calculation, and they'd be vaporized by automated lasers. As they skimmed the lunar dust, sparks flying from near misses with jagged peaks, the bond amplified their focus, his steady hands on the controls, her mental projections guiding him through invisible minefields. But curiosity gnawed at Kai. Fragments of her memories surfaced in his mind, visions of lavish courts where she had danced in gowns that barely concealed her alluring form, suitors vying for her favor while her father plotted in the shadows. What was it like, growing up in that palace? He asked, voice low to mask the ship's hum. Lyra hesitated, her fingers tightening on the console. Lonely, beautiful on the surface, but poisoned by ambition. Father saw me as a pawn, never a person. Her words carried a dramatic weight, stirring something protective in him, a human urge to shield her from the pain that now fueled their vengeance. The pod shuddered as they breached the atmosphere, cloaked in a haze of ionized particles, descending toward a forgotten landing zone in the Empire's underbelly, a sprawling black market hive where outcasts and rebels whispered of uprisings. Thrilling shadows danced across the view screen, towering structures veiled in mist, alien figures scurrying like ghosts in the twilight. No sooner had they touched down in a concealed hangar, the pod hissing as it cooled, than danger erupted. Alarms blared in their minds through the bond guards, alerted by a stray sensor ping, converging on their position. Kai grabbed his plasma rifle, a scavenged beast from his mercenary days, while Lyra summoned her innate energy, her hands glowing with that ethereal light. "They know we're here," she said, her voice rising with dramatic intensity, eyes wide with a mix of fear and exhilaration. They burst from the pod, the air thick with the scent of ozone and spice, dashing into the labyrinthine alleys of the hive. The chase was a whirlwind of thrills, boots pounding on metallic grates, laser bolts sizzling past their heads, singeing the edges of Lyra's gown and leaving scorch marks on Kai's suit. He fired back with precision, his shots felling pursuers in bursts of light, while she deflected incoming fire with psychic barriers, her white hair whipping like a banner in the wind. Through the bond, they moved as one, anticipating each other's steps. A dance of survival that bordered on the surreal. "Left now," Kai shouted, pulling her into a narrow corridor just as a grenade exploded behind them, showering debris. But curiosity turned to surprise as they rounded a corner and stumbled into a hidden chamber, a rebel enclave, walls etched with holographic maps of the Baron's palace, filled with alien dissidents who froze at their intrusion. At the center stood a figure Lyra recognized, a tall, scarred warrior named Aurel, once her childhood guardian. His eyes widening in shock. "Princess, we thought you dead," he exclaimed, his voice booming with dramatic resonance. The room erupted in murmurs, weapons lowering as recognition dawned. Lyra stepped forward, her body language regal despite the chase, her pointed ears perked in alert curiosity. "Aurel, the rumors of my demise were my father's doing, but I've returned with an ally." Kai stood beside her, rifle at the ready, feeling the surge of her emotions, hope mingled with suspicion. This was no coincidence. Through the bond, he sensed her piecing together fragments. Aurel had been exiled years ago for defying the Baron. The rebels, a ragtag group of outcasts with glowing tattoos and makeshift armor, circled them warily. "A human?" one sneered, but Aurel silenced him with a raised hand. "If the princess trusts him, so do we, but tell us, how did you survive Iscaria?" Lyra's tale spilled out in a dramatic torrent, her voice weaving the story of abandonment, fusion, and escape, her hands gesturing with flair that captivated the room. Kai added his own gritty details, his human charisma drawing nods of respect. The bond let him feel her thrill at the revelation. These rebels had been amassing forces, waiting for a spark. Surprise deepened as Aurel revealed a secret, a hidden artifact in the palace depths. A soul amplifier that could broadcast their fused energy across Zerathia, rallying the oppressed. "With it, we could shatter the Baron's mind control networks," he said, eyes gleaming. But the climax built swiftly. Alarms wailed anew, the Baron's elite enforcers breaching the hive's defenses. "They're here for us," Lyra cried, her voice laced with urgent drama. The chamber dissolved into chaos, rebels scrambling for weapons, holographic maps flickering as power surged. Kai and Lyra dove into the fray, their bond turning them into a force of nature. He charged forward, rifle blazing, taking down armored guards with shots that exploded shields in showers of sparks. Lyra flanked him, her energy blasts curving like living serpents, striking vital points with precision amplified by his tactical instincts. Thrilling close calls abounded, a guard's blade whistling past Kai's neck, only for Lyra to yank him back psychically, her stumbling over debris, him catching her in a spin that ended with a shared, breathless glance amid the gunfire. Curiosity piqued as they uncovered a betrayer in the rebels' midst, a spy unmasked by their fused intuition, his confessions spilling under Lyra's mental probe. "The Baron knew of your survival. He sent me to lead you here." The revelation hit like a supernova, surprising even the hardened Aurel. "Then this is a trap," he roared. Explosions rocked the enclave, walls crumbling as enforcers poured in. Kai grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her through a collapsing tunnel, their hearts pounding in sync. "We have to reach the palace now," he urged, his voice thick with determination. Rebels fell around them, but Aurel and a handful followed, forming a desperate vanguard. The escape tunneled upward, emerging in the shadow of the palace itself, a towering edifice of crystal and light that pulsed like a living heart. Dramatic winds howled, carrying the scent of impending storm, as they infiltrated a service duct, crawling through vents alive with humming machinery. Lyra's gown caught on grates, tearing further to reveal more of her enticing form, but there was no time for the erotic pull that tugged at Kai. Survival demanded focus. Yet, through the bond, he felt her curious thrill at his unwavering resolve, a human trait that made her see him as more than an ally, a hero in the flesh. Deeper they delved, the air growing thick with tension, until they reached the artifact chamber, a vaulted hall bathed in ethereal glow, the soul amplifier humming on a pedestal like a forbidden relic. But surprise struck again. The Baron awaited them, flanked by his personal guard, his obsidian form towering with malevolent grace. "Daughter," he intoned, voice dripping with mock sorrow, "you return with a pet human? How quaint, but your little fusion ends here." The confrontation ignited, lasers clashing with energy blasts, rebels engaging guards in a melee of sparks and shouts. Kai and Lyra charged the Baron, their bond flaring to new heights. He dodged his father's psychic assault, a wave of dark energy that shattered nearby columns, while she amplified Kai's strikes, his rifle shots curving impossibly to graze the Baron's armor. Thrilling exchanges unfolded. The Baron taunting with revelations of her mother's true fate, poisoned by his hand, fueling Lyra's rage into a dramatic surge that cracked the floor. Curiosity turned to heart-pounding surprise as the Baron revealed his own secret, a partial fusion with a dark entity, granting him unnatural power. "You think your bond unique? I've mastered the void," he bellowed, unleashing tentacles of shadow that ensnared rebels. Kai broke free, tackling the Baron in a grapple that shook the chamber, his human strength, bolstered by Lyra's essence, matching the tyrant's might. She channeled everything into him, their minds merging fully, sensations blending in a climax of power and passion. In a thrilling twist, Aurel sacrificed himself, diving into the fray to disrupt the Baron's focus, his final words a dramatic cry, "For Zerathia!" The distraction allowed Kai to seize the amplifier, slamming it against the Baron's chest. Energy exploded, a surprising backlash that unraveled the dark fusion, the Baron screaming as his essence fractured. Lyra poured her vengeance through the bond, amplifier broadcasting their united will across the Empire, shattering mind controls and igniting rebellions planet-wide. As the Baron crumpled, defeated but alive, his power broken, the chamber trembled, structural integrity failing from the battle's fury. Kai pulled Lyra close, their bodies pressed amid the debris, breaths ragged. "It's over," he gasped, but her eyes held a curious glint, hinting at more surprises in the aftermath. The Empire teetered on the brink, their alliance the spark that could reshape it all, with love and revenge entwined in ways neither could have foreseen. Exhaustion claimed them as reinforcements, loyal to Lyra now, rushed in, but the thrill lingered, a promise of deeper explorations in the quiet that followed. The stars above Zerathia seemed brighter, as if witnessing the birth of legends. As the reinforcements poured into the crumbling chamber like a tide of long-suppressed hope, their boots echoing against the fractured crystal floors, Kai and Lyra remained locked in that brief, breathless embrace, the world around them blurring into a cacophony of shouts and clanging armor. The Baron's defeated form lay sprawled nearby, his once imposing obsidian frame now twitching faintly under the weight of his shattered essence. Guards hauling him away in energy restraints that hummed with ironic finality. Lyra's curious glint evolved into a determined spark as she pulled back slightly, her white hair disheveled and sticking to her sweat-glistened skin, her pointed ears flushed from the exertion. "It's not over yet," she corrected Kai softly, her voice carrying a dramatic undertone that made his heart skip, partly from the bond's echo of her resolve, partly from the way her body still pressed against his, a reminder of unfinished passions amid the chaos. The Loyalists, former rebels now swelling with newfound allegiance, formed a protective circle around them, their alien faces a mix of awe and fervor. Aurel's sacrifice hung heavy in the air, his absence a dramatic void that fueled whispers of martyrdom. One burly warrior, his scales shimmering under the flickering lights, knelt before Lyra with exaggerated reverence. "Princess, no, Empress Lyra, the throne is yours. The amplifier's broadcast has awakened the masses, riots erupt in the lower spires, demanding the Baron's head." Kai raised an eyebrow, feeling a surge of dramatic pride through their link, but also a twinge of awkwardness. He was a human mercenary in a sea of extraterrestrials, suddenly thrust into royal drama like some interstellar sidekick in a bad holodrama. As they were escorted through the palace's winding corridors, the structure groaning from the battle's aftermath, Kai couldn't shake the surreal humor of it all. Here he was, covered in dust and scorch marks, walking beside a stunning alien who could probably vaporize him with a thought, while courtiers bowed so low they nearly tripped over their own flowing robes. One particularly enthusiastic attendant, a spindly creature with tentacles for arms, thrust a ceremonial cloak at him. For the consort of the Empress. It squeaked, draping the garish fabric over Kai's shoulders. The thing was embroidered with glowing symbols that clashed horribly with his rugged flight suit, making him look like a pirate who'd raided a cosmic thrift store. Lyra stifled a laugh through the bond, her amusement bubbling into his mind like fizzy wine, but outwardly she maintained her regal poise. "It suits you," she teased mentally, her voice in his head laced with playful mockery. Kai shot her a sideways glance, adjusting the cloak awkwardly as it tangled in his rifle strap. "Consort, that's a step up from pet human, I guess, but if this thing itches anymore, I'm ditching it for battle fatigues." The humor lightened the tension, but drama loomed as they approached the grand throne room, its massive doors creaking open to reveal a hall packed with nobles, advisors, and holographic projections of distant lords pledging fealty or plotting, depending on their shifty eyes. The air was thick with incense and intrigue, the crystal chandeliers above pulsing erratically from the power surges. Lyra stepped forward, her torn gown somehow enhancing her allure, the fabric clinging in ways that drew lingering gazes, including Kai's, through the bond. He felt her self-consciousness mix with defiance, heightening the drama as she addressed the assembly. "My people," she began, her voice echoing with commanding drama. "The tyrant's reign ends today, but freedom demands vigilance. Alliances must be forged anew, betrayals rooted out." The crowd murmured, a wave of applause building, but awkwardness struck when a pompous advisor, his ears even pointier than Lyra's and adorned with jeweled rings, stepped up with a scroll. "Empress, tradition dictates a bonding ceremony to solidify your rule, and with your unique fusion to this outsider." He gestured at Kai, who stood there trying not to fidget under the spotlight. The advisor's tone dripped with disdain, turning the moment into a comedic farce. Kai felt heat rise to his cheeks, awkward didn't begin to cover it. "Bonding ceremony? Like, what, space wedding vows? I didn't even pack a tux." Lyra's eyes widened fractionally, her bond flooding him with a mix of embarrassment and amusement. "It's symbolic," she projected quickly. "But yes, it involves a public declaration and a shared essence display." The crowd hushed, expectant, as the advisor unrolled the scroll, chanting in an ancient Zarathian tongue that sounded suspiciously like a bad poetry slam. Kai shifted uncomfortably, the cloak now feeling like a straitjacket, and whispered to Lyra, "Do I have to recite anything? Because my alien linguistics are rusty. Last time I tried, I accidentally ordered a salad instead of ammo." Her mental laughter rippled through him, easing the drama, but the situation escalated when the advisor thrust a glowing orb at them. "Place your hands upon the relic of union and let the Empire witness your bond." The drama heightened as they complied, palms pressing against the warm, pulsating surface. Energy surged, visible tendrils of light weaving between them, broadcasting their fused souls to the holograms across the hall. Kai felt exposed, every emotion laid bare, his admiration for her curves, her intrigue at his human quirks amplifying into a public spectacle. Gasps echoed, one noble fainted dramatically, tentacles flailing, but humor crept in when the orb malfunctioned slightly from the battle damage, emitting a series of comical beeps like a malfunctioning droid. "Is it supposed to sound like that?" Kai muttered, drawing chuckles from the crowd. Lyra's cheeks flushed blue, her pointed ears drooping in awkward mortification. "No, it's interpreting our thoughts too literally. Everyone can feel our private moments." Kai's eyes went wide, realizing the bond was projecting flashes, their cockpit kisses, heated touches in the pod. The hall erupted in a mix of scandalized whispers and suppressed giggles, turning the solemn ceremony into an interstellar blooper reel. "Great, now the whole Empire knows I snore," he quipped mentally, trying to diffuse the awkwardness. Lyra shot him a glare, but her lips twitched. "You don't snore, that's your stomach after eating those ration bars." The light-hearted jab cut through the tension, but drama resurfaced as a dissenting lord stood, his voice booming. "This human taints our bloodline. The fusion is an abomination, demand a trial to prove his worth." The challenge hung heavy, heightening the stakes. Lyra's hand tightened on Kai's, her body leaning into him protectively, the gown's tier revealing a glimpse of her thigh that only added to the charged atmosphere. "A trial?" she echoed, voice dramatic and laced with fury. "Very well, But know this, my consort has faced worse than your petty games. Kai swallowed, feeling the awkward weight of expectation. Trials in Zerathia, she explained through the bond, involved holographic duels blending physical prowess and mental acuity, essentially. A gladiatorial mind meld where losers ended up comically humbled or dramatically defeated. As preparations began in an adjacent arena, the palace buzzing with bets and speculations, awkward situations piled on. Kai was fitted with ceremonial armor that was far too tight in all the wrong places, squeezing his broad frame like a cosmic corset. "This thing's riding up," he grumbled to Lyra, who was adjusting her own regal attire, a new gown that hugged her curves even more provocatively, white hair braided with glowing threads. She smirked, her eyes dancing with humor. "Consider it motivation to win quickly. Besides, it accentuates your assets." The flirtation amid the drama sent a thrill through him, but the bond betrayed her own nervousness, heightening the emotional pull. The arena was a dramatic coliseum of floating platforms and energy fields, spectators holographic and real packing the stands. Kai faced the Lord's champion, a hulking alien with 4 arms and a sneer that could curdle milk. "Human weakling," it taunted, voice amplified for maximum drama. The duel commenced with a gong that shook the air, platforms shifting unpredictably. Kai dodged a flurry of strikes, his human agility amplified by Lyra's essence, landing a punch that sent the champion stumbling. But awkward humor struck when a platform glitched, dumping Kai into a shallow energy pool that zapped him comically, his hair standing on end like a cartoon character. The crowd roared with laughter. Even Lyra couldn't hold back a giggle through the bond. "You look like you stuck your finger in a warp drive." Recovering with a grin, Kai quipped back mentally, "Laugh it up, princess, your turn to bail me out." She channeled a surge, allowing him to phase through the next attack, surprising the champion into a dramatic slip off the edge. The fall was slow motion hilarious, the 4-armed brute flailing like a windmill in zero gravity before splashing into a safety net. Victory was Kai's, but the drama peaked as the defeated lord knelt, swearing loyalty with grudging respect. "Perhaps humans aren't so primitive," he admitted, the words drawing cheers. In the aftermath, as they retreated to private chambers, the awkwardness lingered in humorous echoes. Lyra helped Kai out of the ill-fitting armor, her fingers lingering on his skin, turning the moment intimate. "You handled that with flair," she said, voice soft but dramatic. Eyes tracing his form, Kai pulled her close, the bond alive with shared triumph and teasing. "Next time, let's skip the public soul-sharing. Some things are better private." Her laughter filled the room, a light counter to the day's heaviness, but underlying drama whispered of unresolved threats, whispers of the Baron's allies plotting in the shadows. As night fell over Zerathia, the palace settling into uneasy peace. Kai and Lyra shared a quiet meal, awkward cultural clashes adding humor, him mistaking a delicacy for decoration and nearly wearing it as a hat, her explaining with patient amusement. Yet, the bond deepened their connection, heightening every glance, every touch into promises of more. Rumors of external invasions loomed, allies from Velquar sensing weakness. But for now, they reveled in the victory, awkward mishaps weaving into the fabric of their burgeoning legend. The Empire watched, breathless, as a human and an alien empress navigated the star's capricious stage, drama ever building toward the unknown. As the murals faded into the softer glow of Lyra's private chambers, the heavy doors sealing behind them with a gentle whoosh that isolated them from the palace's lingering echoes. Kai felt the weight of the day melt away, replaced by a profound sense of closeness that thrummed through their shared bond. The room was a sanctuary of elegance, with walls that shimmered like captured starlight and a vast bed draped in silken sheets that invited surrender. Lyra released his hand only to turn toward him, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that spoke volumes, the blue flush on her pale skin deepening under the moonlight filtering through crystalline panes. The air between them grew charged, every breath synchronized, as if the universe itself conspired to draw them nearer. She stepped closer, her gown brushing against his legs, the fabrics whisper a prelude to the tenderness unfolding. "We've faced storms and shadows together," she murmured, her voice low and inviting, carrying the melodic lilt of her heritage. Kai reached out, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw, marveling at the softness of her skin, so different from his own yet perfectly complementary. Through the fusion, he sensed her anticipation mirroring his, a gentle wave of warmth that built slowly, like a distant star igniting into brilliance. He pulled her into his arms, their bodies fitting together seamlessly, her curves pressing against the hard planes of his chest in a way that sent subtle ripples of delight through both of them. Lyra's pointed ears quivered as his lips found hers, the kiss starting soft and exploratory, a meeting of worlds that deepened with each passing moment. Her hands roamed up his back, fingers splaying across his shoulders, drawing him in as if to merge their essences even further. The bond amplified the connection, turning every touch into a shared symphony of sensations, the heat of his breath on her neck, the cool silk of her hair cascading over his arms. Kai lifted her gently, carrying her to the bed with ease, his strength a quiet assurance that made her feel cherished and protected. As they sank into the plush bedding, her gown slipped slightly, revealing the graceful lines of her form, but it was the emotional intimacy that truly enveloped them, the trust born from battles won side by side. In the quiet sanctuary of the chamber, time seemed to stretch, allowing them to explore the depths of their affection without haste. Lyra's whispers guided him, her voice a soothing melody as she shared the vulnerabilities of her kind, the ways their bonds could heighten moments of closeness into something transcendent. Kai responded with his human warmth, his touches tender and attentive, discovering the spots that made her sigh, the sensitive curve behind her ear, the hollow at the base of her throat. Each caress was a promise, a blend of curiosity and care that wove their souls tighter, the fusion pulsing with a gentle rhythm that echoed their hearts. The night unfolded in layers of shared discovery, their movements fluid and harmonious, like a dance choreographed by the stars. Lyra arched into his embrace, her body responding to his with an elegance that spoke of ancient rituals, while Kai's steady presence grounded her, his hands mapping the contours of her figure with reverence. Through the link, emotions flowed freely, waves of joy, surges of passion, and a profound sense of unity that transcended the physical. It was as if their fused essences created a private cosmos, where every shared breath built toward a crescendo of mutual fulfillment, leaving them both breathless and connected on a level deeper than words could express. As the moons climbed higher, casting shifting patterns across the room, they lingered in the afterglow, bodies entwined under the silken covers. Lyra rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, her white hair fanning out like a luminous veil. "This bond, it's more than survival now," she said softly, her fingers tracing idle patterns on his skin, eliciting a contented hum from him. Kai kissed the top of her head, feeling the peace that settled over them, but also the subtle undercurrent of their shared resolve. The Empire's challenges still loomed, yet in this moment, they found strength in each other. Whispers of the outside world began to intrude gently, a distant chime signaling incoming messages from advisors, but they ignored it for a while longer, savoring the intimacy that had blossomed amid the chaos. Kai turned to her, his eyes reflecting the starlight, and murmured, "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Lyra smiled, her pointed ears perking up with renewed energy, the bond humming with agreement, as they finally rose, dressing in the quiet dawnlight filtering through the windows. The night's closeness lingered like a warm ember, fueling their steps forward into the uncertainties of ruling an empire reborn. The palace stirred to life around them, servants bustling with preparations for the day, but Kai and Lyra moved with a new synchronicity, their touches lingering in passing, a brush of hands, a shared glance that spoke of secrets only they knew. In the council chambers, as they addressed the first waves of diplomatic envoys from allied worlds, the bond allowed them to anticipate each other's thoughts, turning potential tensions into seamless negotiations. Yet, beneath the surface, the memory of their private hours added a layer of quiet confidence, a reminder that their alliance was forged not just in battle, but in the tender vulnerabilities they had shared. As the morning progressed, a subtle awkwardness from the previous day's ceremonies resurfaced when an envoy from a neighboring system eyed Kai curiously, commenting on the unique harmony of their rule. Lyra handled it with grace, her voice steady, but through the bond, she shared a playful nudge of amusement with him, lightening the moment. They navigated the intricacies of power, from reviewing security reports on Velkwar's movements to planning reforms that would heal Zarathia's wounds, all while the fusion kept their connection alive and vibrant. By midday, as they stole a brief respite in a sunlit garden overlooking the crystalline spires, Lyra leaned against him, her body fitting naturally into his side. The floral scents mingled with her own subtle fragrance, evoking echoes of the night before. "Our people will thrive under this new era," she said, her tone reflective. Kai nodded, his arm around her waist, feeling the curve that he now knew so well. The bond pulsed with contentment, but also with a hint of the passion that could reignite at any moment, a promise that kept their journey exhilarating. Challenges arose as the day wore on, a minor uprising in the outer districts, fueled by remnants of the Baron's loyalists, but their united front quelled it swiftly, Kai's tactical insights complementing Lyra's diplomatic finesse. In quieter intervals, they exchanged stolen kisses in shadowed alcoves, the fusion turning each into a spark that reaffirmed their bond. The Empire watched their empress and her human consort with growing admiration, stories of their fusion spreading like wildfire, inspiring tales of unity across species. As evening approached once more, casting long shadows over the palace, they retired to their chambers again, the routine feeling both familiar and thrilling. Lyra's gown this time was simpler, yet no less alluring, hugging her form in ways that invited his gaze. They talked softly of the future, plans intertwining with dreams, the bond allowing unspoken desires to surface gently. Kai pulled her close, their lips meeting in a kiss that carried the warmth of the day and the intimacy of nights past, building toward another shared exploration that strengthened their unbreakable tie. In these moments, away from the throne's demands, they found solace in each other, the fusion a bridge between human tenacity and alien grace. The stars outside twinkled as witnesses, the galaxy vast but their world intimately small. As they surrendered to the night's embrace once again, the connection deepened, emotions and sensations blending in harmonious waves, leaving them fulfilled and ready for whatever dawn might bring. The pattern continued in the days that followed, their rule marked by progress and passion, the bond evolving with each shared experience. Lyra's leadership brought innovation to Zerathia, while Kai's influence introduced human resilience, creating a hybrid strength that deterred external threats. Yet, it was the private hours that truly sustained them, where vulnerabilities were cherished and desires explored with mutual respect, forging a love as enduring as the cosmos itself. Through it all, the fusion remained their greatest asset, a living thread that wove their fates together, ensuring that no challenge could sever what they had built. As whispers of greater adventures beckoned from the stars, Kai and Lyra stood united, their story a testament to the power of connection in the face of the unknown. As whispers of greater adventures beckoned from the stars, Kai and Lyra found themselves drawn deeper into the rhythms of rulership, their days a blend of strategic counsels and stolen moments that reinforced the unbreakable thread between them. Mornings often began in the grand strategy room, where holographic maps of Zerathia's borders flickered like living constellations, highlighting the persistent skirmishes with Velquar's opportunistic fleets. Lyra stood at the center, her white hair tied back in a practical braid that still managed to cascade elegantly over her shoulders. Her gown, a flowing garment of deep indigo that accentuated her graceful form without sacrificing the poise of an empress. Kai leaned against a nearby console, his human build a stark contrast in his fitted tactical vest. Arms crossed as he offered insights drawn from his mercenary past, ways to outmaneuver blockades with guerrilla tactics that left the advisors nodding in reluctant admiration. Their bond made these sessions effortless. A subtle mental nudge from her would prompt him to elaborate on a point, while his instinctive hunches guided her decisions, turning potential debates into harmonious resolutions. Velquar's probes are testing our flanks, one advisor noted, his voice grave as he zoomed in on a cluster of red icons. They're bolder since the Baron's fall, sensing vulnerability. Lyra's pointed ears twitched thoughtfully, her pale skin catching the holographic glow in a way that made her seem almost luminous. She glanced at Kai, feeling his steady resolve bolster her own. Then we'll fortify the outer rings with hybrid defenses, Zerathian shields fused with human adaptability. Kai's designs for adaptive drones will turn their aggression back on them. He smiled at her endorsement, a private warmth passing through their link, but the meeting pressed on with reports of internal stabilizations, reforms easing the Baron's old oppressions, alliances rebuilt with wary neighbors. As the hours stretched, fatigue crept in, but their connection kept them sharp. Emotions shared like a gentle current, her quiet determination mingling with his unyielding optimism. By afternoon, they adjourned to a balcony overlooking the spires, the air crisp with the scent of blooming nebula vines that climbed the palace walls. Lyra leaned against the railing, her body relaxing into the curve that Kai knew so well, and he stepped behind her, his hands resting lightly on her waist. "We're building something real here," he murmured, his breath stirring the fine hairs at the nape of her neck. She turned slightly, her eyes meeting his with that familiar spark, the bond humming with contentment. Yes, and it's ours beyond revenge, beyond survival. Yet, even in these tranquil interludes, subtle undercurrents tugged at them. Whispers from the Baron's old archives had surfaced, encrypted files that the advisors were slowly decoding, hinting at secrets buried deeper than his tyranny. Lyra dismissed them initially, focused on the present, but Kai's curiosity, amplified through their fusion, prompted her to authorize a deeper dive. What if there's more to his alliances? He suggested one evening as they walked the palace gardens, the paths lined with glowing flora that pulsed softly in the twilight. Her hand in his felt natural, her fingers interlacing with a squeeze that sent a ripple of affection through him. Perhaps, but dwelling on the past could unravel what we've woven. Still, she agreed, and by the next dawn, a team of scholars presented their findings in a secured chamber, the air thick with anticipation. The room was dimly lit, dominated by a central holoprojector that cast ethereal blue light across the assembled faces. Lyra sat at the head of the table, her regal bearing unbroken, while Kai stood beside her, his presence a silent anchor. The lead scholar, an elderly alien with wrinkled, luminescent skin, activated the display, files unfolding like digital petals. Empress, these records reveal the Baron's communications with Velquar, not just packs of power, but desperate pleas. Murmurs rippled through the room, but Lyra raised a hand for silence, her pointed ears perking with intrigue. Through the bond, Kai felt her pulse quicken, mirroring his own growing unease. "Please," she echoed, her voice steady but laced with the drama of unspoken fears. The scholar nodded, projecting a series of messages, holographic text scrolling in ancient script, translated overlays appearing in real time. He wasn't allying for conquest, he was warning them of an impending cataclysm, a force from the void that threatened all systems. But Velquar dismissed him as mad, turning his isolation into opportunity. Kai leaned forward, his brow furrowing. What force? The dark entity he fused with? The scholar hesitated, then revealed a sealed vidlog, the Baron's own recording, his obsidian features twisted in rare vulnerability. As it played, the room fell silent, the Baron's voice echoing, the shadows whisper of an ancient devourer, awakening in the rift. I fused with a fragment to contain it, but it consumes me. My daughter, she must never know the truth of her lineage, for it ties her to the storm. Lyra's breath caught, her hand tightening on the armrest, the bond flooding Kai with her swirling confusion. Lineage, she whispered, but the log continued, the Baron's eyes haunted. Her mother wasn't slain by rivals. She fled to Velquar, carrying secrets of the old ones. Lyra is not fully of Zerathia. She's a bridge to the void, her birth a ritual to seal the devourer away. The revelation landed like a supernova, the room erupting in gasps, but for Lyra and Kai, it was a personal quake. Through their fusion, fragments of suppressed memories surfaced in her mind, flashes of a woman with similar white hair, pointed ears, but eyes that swirled with starry voids, whispering lullabies of distant rifts. Kai's hand found hers under the table, squeezing reassuringly, but his own mind reeled, the twist unraveling everything they thought they knew. If this is true, he said aloud, his voice cutting through the chaos, then defeating him didn't end the threat, it unleashed it. The scholar confirmed with a grave nod, pulling up scans, a massive anomaly in the nearby rift, growing since the Baron's fall. Tendrils of dark energy probing towards Zerathia like hungry fingers. Lyra stood abruptly, her gown swirling around her, the blue flush on her skin now a sign of turmoil rather than passion. My mother, alive, leading Velquar against us? The surprise deepened as the logs revealed more. Her mother, Queen Vexa, had orchestrated the alliances not for war, but to contain the devourer, viewing the Baron's methods as too risky. The abandonment wasn't cruelty, it was a desperate act to hide Lyra, the key to sealing the entity from those who might exploit her. The bond amplified the shock. Kai felt her world fracturing, emotions crashing like waves, betrayal, longing, fear, but in that vulnerability, his human tenacity shone through, steadying her. This changes everything, he murmured mentally, but we're in it together. We'll find her, uncover the truth. Yet, the twist's power lay in its immediacy. Alarms suddenly blared, the palace shaking as rift anomalies breached the atmosphere, shadowy probes manifesting as writhing voids, siphoning energy from the spires. It's here, an advisor cried, panic spreading. Lyra's eyes widened, but through the fusion, a new power stirred within her, a dormant essence awakening, her hybrid lineage granting her glimpses of the devourer's mind, vast and insatiable. In the ensuing frenzy, they rushed to the command center. the ground trembling under ethereal assaults. Kai grabbed his rifle, barking orders to defenses, while Lyra channeled her emerging abilities, her hands glowing with void-touched light that repelled the tendrils. The surprise twisted further as she connected to the entity. Visions flooded their bond, her mother's face, not as an enemy, but a guardian, her forces from Velquar arriving not to invade, but to aid, their ships forming a blockade against the rift. "She's coming to save us," Lyra gasped, the realization flipping their alliances on its head. Kai stared, the human in him adapting swiftly. "Then we welcome her with caution." The fleet materialized in orbit, sleek Velquar vessels broadcasting hails of truce. Lyra activated the comms, her voice steady despite the whirlwind inside. "Mother, if it's you, show yourself." The response came in a holographic projection, Queen Vexa, a mirror of Lyra but aged with wisdom, her eyes holding the same starry depth. "Daughter, the Devourer senses your power, it's drawn to you. The Baron hid you to protect the seal, but now we must reinforce it together." The room fell silent, the twist's layers unfolding. Vex's abandonment was a sacrifice, the Baron's cruelty a facade to keep enemies at bay, and Lyra's fusion with Kai the unintended catalyst that both weakened and strengthened the barrier, his human essence providing the unpredictability to combat the void. Drama escalated as the Devourer's tendrils intensified, breaching shields and coiling toward the palace. Kai and Lyra moved as one, her void powers amplified by his resolve, blasting back the shadows in a dazzling display of light and determination. Rebels, now loyal guards, joined the fray, lasers clashing with ethereal darkness in a battle that shook the foundations. Through it all, the bond revealed more surprises, Vex's voice in Lyra's mind, a familial link awakening, guiding her to channel the fusion into a sealing ritual. "Use the human spirit, he's the anchor," Vexa urged. Kai felt the pull, his body humming as Lyra drew on him, their connection blazing in a climactic surge. They projected a barrier from the amplifier, the Devourer recoiling with a silent scream that rippled across space. Velquar ships lent their energy, weaving a net that pushed the entity back into the rift, sealing it anew. As the skies cleared, Vex's shuttle landed, the Queen stepping forth, a vision of regal strength, her embrace with Lyra a tearful reunion that surprised even the hardened advisors. "I never stopped loving you," Vexa whispered, pulling back to regard Kai with appraising eyes. "And you, human, you've become part of the seal, your bond saved us all." The twist settled like a new dawn, alliances reformed, secrets laid bare, Zarathia and Velquar united under a fragile peace, the Baron's legacy redeemed in part as a flawed protector. For Kai and Lyra, the surprise deepened their love. What began as vengeance evolved into a cosmic guardianship, their fusion a beacon against the void. Yet, as they stood together, watching Vex's fleet integrate with their own, a lingering question hummed in the bond: what other truths lay hidden in the stars? The adventures whispered louder now, promising more twists in the tapestry of their shared destiny. As whispers of greater adventures beckoned from the stars, Kai and Lyra stood together on the palace's grand observation deck, the vast viewport framing the mesmerizing dance of Velquar's fleet merging with Zarathia's own, sleek, angular ships docking alongside crystalline vessels in a symphony of lights and humming engines that spoke of uneasy unity. The lingering question hummed in the bond like a distant siren, pulling at their thoughts: what other truths lay hidden in the stars? Vex's revelation had reshaped their world, turning enemies into allies and vengeance into guardianship. But the integration wasn't seamless. Drama simmered beneath the surface as crews from both sides mingled in the hangars below, tentative handshakes masking old grudges, while holographic banners proclaimed a new era of peace. Lyra's hand rested on Kai's arm, her touch a grounding force amid the whirlwind, her white hair catching the starlight in a way that made her seem both ethereal and achingly real. "This alliance, it's fragile," she said softly, her pointed ears twitching at the faint clangs echoing from the docks. Kai nodded, his human intuition picking up on the undercurrents through their fusion, a mix of hope and suspicion that mirrored his own street-smart wariness from mercenary days. The adventures whispered louder now, promising more twists in the tapestry of their shared destiny, and as if on cue, a priority hail chimed from the comms panel. Vexa herself appeared in hologram form, her starry-eyed gaze steady but urgent. "Daughter, we've detected residual echoes from the Devourer, faint but persistent. It probes the seal we forged. We must convene a joint council immediately." Lyra's posture straightened, the drama heightening as she felt the weight of her hybrid lineage pressing down, a bridge between worlds that could either unite or unravel them. Kai squeezed her hand, offering a wry smile to lighten the moment. Great, family reunion round 2. Hope she's bringing space snacks this time. I'm starving after all that void battling. His humor cut through the tension, drawing a soft laugh from her, but the bond betrayed her deeper anxiety, amplifying it into a shared pulse that made his chest tighten. They descended to the council chambers, the palace corridors alive with bustling activity, Zarathian guards in flowing capes nodding to Velkwar warriors in armored suits. Their interactions an awkward ballet of cultural clashes. One Velkwar officer, a burly figure with tentacle-like appendages, accidentally bumped into a Zarathian aide, sending datapads flying in a comedic scatter. Apologies, fragile one, the officer boomed, his voice like gravel, while the aide scrambled to collect them, muttering about barbaric bulk. Kai chuckled under his breath, leaning toward Lyra. See, not just us humans causing the awkwardness, though if he calls me squishy again, I might demonstrate some Earth-style wrestling. She elbowed him playfully, a blue flush hinting at amusement, but the drama loomed as they entered the chamber, a vast room ringed with holographic displays showing the rift's stabilizing readings, advisors from both empires seated in a tense circle. Vexa materialized at the head, her presence commanding yet maternal, her gown a swirling vortex of dark fabrics that echoed the void she had guarded for so long. The seal holds, but the Devourer's fragments linger in the ether, seeking vessels, she announced, her voice resonating with dramatic gravity. Scans projected anomalies, wispy shadows coiling in subspace, drawn to strong essences like Lyra's. The council erupted in murmurs, Zarathian nobles accusing Velkwar of lax patrols, while Vex's delegates countered with claims of Zarathian overreach. Lyra stepped forward, her voice cutting through like a blade. Enough division, we are one now. The fusion Kai and I share proved its power. We must extend that unity. But awkwardness struck when a young Velkwar scribe, eager to impress, presented a ritual artifact, a glowing orb meant to symbolize the alliance, only to trip over his own tentacles, sending it rolling across the floor straight toward Kai's feet. Kai scooped it up with a grin, holding it aloft like a trophy. Catch of the day, does this mean I'm officially family now, or is it booby-trapped? The room froze in a moment of stunned silence. Then Vexa let out a rare, tinkling laugh that broke the ice, her starry eyes twinkling. Human humor unpredictable, yet disarming, perhaps that's why the fusion works. Lyra shot Kai a look that mixed exasperation and fondness, the bond flooding him with her relief at the tension easing. Yet, the drama intensified as Vexer revealed the next layer, to reinforce the seal. They needed to perform a grand ritual at the rift's edge, involving Lyra channeling her lineage's power through the fusion, with representatives from both empires as witnesses. It will expose vulnerabilities, Vexa warned, her tone grave. Any weakness could invite the fragments in. Preparations turned the palace into a hive of activity, heightening the drama with every passing hour. Kai and Lyra oversaw the loading of ships, their bond allowing seamless coordination, he barking orders to tech crews rigging amplifiers, she negotiating with skeptical nobles. But awkward situations piled on like cosmic debris. During a fitting for ritual attire, Kai was draped in a Velkwar ceremonial suit that was all flowing sleeves and glowing runes, but designed for tentacled beings, leaving extra appendages dangling comically. I look like a squid in a tuxedo, he grumbled, flailing the extra sleeves like limp noodles. Lyra, in her own elegant void-weave gown that hugged her curves with starry patterns, couldn't suppress her giggles. It's distinguished. Just don't wave them during the ritual. We don't want to summon a dance party instead of a seal. Her humor lightened his embarrassment, but through the bond, he felt her own nerves, the pressure of her role as the bridge weighing heavily. As the fleet assembled, a majestic armada of merged designs cutting through the stars toward the rift, the drama built to a fever pitch. On the flagship's bridge, surrounded by officers from both sides, Lyra and Kai stood at the command console, her hand on his shoulder a silent anchor. Sensors blared warnings, devourer fragments manifesting as illusory storms, ship hulls groaning under psychic pressure. They're testing us, Vexa said via hologram, her face etched with concern. A sudden jolt rocked the vessel, a fragment breaching shields and inducing hallucinations, crew members seeing long-lost loved ones or nightmarish voids. Kai gripped the railing, his vision blurring to show Earth colonies in flames, but Lyra's presence through the bond pulled him back. It's not real, she whispered, her voice a lifeline. In a humorous twist amid the chaos, one Zarathian officer, hallucinating a swarm of tiny creatures, swatted at thin air, yelling about void gnats, only for it to be a stray holographic glitch. Kai barked a laugh. Gnats, I've fought worse in swamp bars. Focus, folks, unless you want me to handle pest control. The awkwardness peaked during a pre-ritual briefing, where Vexa insisted on a essence-sharing exercise to align the council's energies, a circle where participants linked hands and projected thoughts. Kai, sandwiched between a stoic Velquar warrior and a chatty Zarathian elder, felt utterly out of place. As the energies flowed, stray thoughts leaked, the warrior's gruff admiration for human grit, the elder's recipe for nebulous stew. But when Kai's mind wandered to a private memory of Lyra's laughter in their chambers, it broadcast faintly, drawing raised eyebrows and a collective blush. Oops, he muttered, face heating. Mental note, think about baseball next time. Lyra, across the circle, sent a mental poke of amusement, but her eyes held dramatic intensity. The ritual loomed, and failure could doom them all. At the rift's edge, the fleet formed a protective ring, the anomaly swirling like a cosmic whirlpool, dark tendrils lashing out. Drama enveloped them as Lyra took center stage on the flagship's ritual platform, an open deck exposed to the void, shielded by energy fields. Kai stood beside her, their hands clasped, the fusion igniting as she drew on her lineage. Vexa guided from her ship, her voice echoing, "Channel the bond, let it weave the seal anew." Power surged, light exploding from them in radiant waves, pushing back the fragments. But awkward humor intruded when a tendril grazed a nearby vessel, causing its comms to glitch and broadcast a Velquar opera aria mid-battle, the dramatic soprano clashing with laser fire. Not the soundtrack I expected. Kai quipped, even as sweat beaded on his brow, the strain pulling at him. The ritual climaxed in heart-pounding tension, fragments coalesced into a massive shadow form, roaring silently across space, targeting Lyra as the key. She faltered momentarily, the void's pull tugging at her essence, visions of endless darkness flooding the bond. Kai poured his human tenacity into her, grounding her with memories of their shared warmth, kisses under moons, laughter in chaos. "You've got this, princess," he urged mentally, his voice a beacon. With a final surge, amplified by the fleet's combined energies, they sealed the rift, the shadow dissipating in a spectacular burst of light. Cheers erupted across comms, but exhaustion hit like a wave, Lyra collapsing into Kai's arms, her body trembling. In the aftermath, as ships regrouped, awkward situations lingered in the celebrations. A joint feast turned comical when Kai mistook a Velquar delicacy, a wriggling tentacle dish, for a prank, poking it cautiously while others dove in. Is it supposed to move? Back home, food that fights back usually means it's not cooked. Vexa chuckled, her maternal warmth easing the cultural gap. It's a sign of freshness, consort. Embrace the unfamiliar. Lyra leaned against him, her fatigue melting into contentment, the bond alive with gratitude. Yet, Drama whispered of future threats, scans showing dormant fragments elsewhere, hinting at a larger network. As they retired to quarters aboard the flagship, the stars streaking by, Kai helped Lyra out of her gown, his touches tender amid the day's echoes. "We did it again," he said, injecting humor. "At this rate, I'll need a vacation. Maybe a beach planet, no voids allowed." She smiled, pulling him close, the awkward mishaps fading into the warmth of their connection. But the alliance's fragility remained. Nobles plotting in shadows, Vex's secrets not fully unveiled. Drama heightened with each revelation, awkward clashes forging stronger bonds, humor the glue holding it together. Their destiny unfolded like a nebula, vast, unpredictable, and brilliantly alive. The fleet's return to Zarathia was triumphant, parades of lightships illuminating the skies, but underlying tensions simmered. In private, Lyra confided her fears to Kai, the bond allowing raw vulnerability. "What if I'm more void than Zarathian?" she whispered, her pointed ears drooping. He cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. "Then you're the best parts of both, and I've got your back, voids and all." His light-hearted assurance drew a smile, but drama escalated when an encrypted message arrived from a distant scout, another rift anomaly, larger, pulling in nearby systems. "It's spreading," Vexa confirmed in council, her hologram flickering. Awkwardly, Kai suggested a human-inspired solution, bait and switch, using decoy essences to lure fragments. The idea drew skeptical looks, one noble snorting. "Human tricks. Next you'll suggest arm wrestling the void." Kai grinned. "Hey, I've won worse bets." Implementation brought more humor-laced awkwardness. Training sessions where Velquar warriors fumbled human gadgets. tentacles tangling in drone controls, while Zarathians marveled at Kai's improvised repairs using duct tape equivalents. Magic strip, a warrior dubbed it, slapping it on haphazardly. Lyra watched, her laughter bubbling through the bond, the drama of impending danger balanced by these moments of levity. As probes launched toward the new anomaly, the fleet on high alert, Kai and Lyra shared a quiet vigil, her head on his shoulder. "Whatever comes," she said, voice dramatic with resolve, "we face it as one." He nodded, adding humor, "And if it's gnats again, I'm bringing the swatter." The mission unfolded with pulse-pounding intensity, decoys drawing fragments into traps, explosions blooming in space like fireworks. But a twist in the drama, a fragment possessing a scout ship, turning it against them, forced Kai into a daring boarding action. Laser in hand, he navigated zero-grav corridors, awkward in the alien layout, bumping into bulkheads, like a maze designed by a drunk squid. He muttered over comms, drawing chuckles from the bridge. Lyra's guidance through the bond led him to the core, where he disrupted the possession with a fused energy burst, the ship purging the shadow in a dramatic flare. Victory secured, but the anomaly revealed coordinates to an ancient archive, a repository of void lore, guarded by automated defenses. The council debated fiercely, drama heightening as factions clashed, explore or seal it away. Kai's vote tipped the scale, his human curiosity infectious. Knowledge is power, let's grab it before the void does. Awkward preparations followed, suiting up in hybrid armor that chafed in odd places, Kai joking about interstellar wedgies. Lyra rolled her eyes, but her affection shone through. The expedition launched, ships piercing the anomaly's veil into a hidden nebula, the archive a colossal structure of twisting spires. Drama peaked as defenses activated, laser grids and psychic minds testing their mettle. Kai and Lyra led the boarding team, their fusion turning hazards into synchronized dodges, humor emerging when a mine induced a temporary gravity flip, sending a warrior tumbling like a pinball. Bumper points, Kai called, pulling him to safety. Inside, holographic tomes unfolded secrets, the Devourer's origins as a primordial guardian gone rogue, Lyra's lineage engineered to balance it. But awkward revelations struck. Vexa had known more, withholding details to protect her. Confrontation via comms turned dramatic, mother and daughter clashing in emotional waves. "You abandoned me for this?" Lyra accused, tears glistening. Vexa bowed her head. "To save you from becoming its vessel." Kai mediated with humor. "Family therapy in space, who knew? Let's hug it out before the next mine blows." Resolution came in shared understanding, the archive yielding rituals to permanently bind the fragments. Back on Zarathia, the alliance solidified, drama giving way to hope. Yet, as Kai and Lyra watched the stars, a new signal blinked distant, alluring. "More adventures," he said with a grin. She leaned in, the bond warm. Together, their story, rich with drama, awkwardness, and humor, continued to unfold, a testament to love's enduring light in the cosmos. As the expedition's triumphs echoed through the merged fleets of Zarathia and Velquar, their ships gliding back toward home under the watchful gaze of newly fortified stars. Kai and Lyra's story, rich with drama, awkwardness, and humor, continued to unfold, a testament to love's enduring light in the cosmos that illuminated paths once shrouded in shadow. The ancient archive's revelations had not only armed them with rituals to bind the Devourer's fragments, but had also peeled back layers of misunderstanding, turning Vex's guarded secrets into bridges of reconciliation. Mother and daughter walked the palace halls together now, their steps synchronized in a rhythm born from years of separation. Vex's starry eyes often misting as she shared tales of Lyra's infancy, whispers of void lullabies, and hidden watches from afar. Kai watched these moments with a quiet smile, his human heart swelling at the sight, the bond allowing him to feel Lyra's healing wounds like his own, a gentle mending that wove their fates even tighter. The return to Zarathia was a spectacle of unity. The skies alive with parades of lightships that painted the atmosphere in hues of celebration, crystalline spires reflecting the glow like mirrors to a brighter future. Crowds gathered in the grand plazas, a mosaic of Zarathian elegance and Velquar robustness, cheering as the Empress and her consort descended from the flagship, hand in hand. Lyra's white hair flowed freely in the breeze, her pointed ears adorned with subtle jewels that caught the light, her gown a blend of both empire styles, flowing silk interwoven with armored accents that symbolized strength and harmony. Kai, in his adapted attire, no longer felt like an outsider. The once awkward suits had been tailored to fit his broad frame, glowing runes now feeling like badges of honor rather than comic props. "Look at us," he murmured to her amid the roar, his voice laced with that familiar humor. From crash-landed misfits to cosmic power couple, who'd have thought? The festivities stretched into the night, banquets where delicacies from both worlds mingled on platters, Zarathian crystal fruits that shimmered like stars alongside Velquar tentacle roasts that, to Kai's relief, no longer wriggled. Laughter filled the air as cultural exchanges turned into light-hearted games, Velquar warriors attempting Zarathian dances with their multiple limbs flailing in endearing chaos, while Zarathians tried human-style toasts, clinking goblets with exaggerated flair. One particularly bold Velquar officer challenged Kai to an arm wrestle, tentacles wrapping around his hand in a grip that tested his limits. Human strength, legend, or myth? The officer boomed. Kai grinned, channeling a flicker of the fusion's power, and with a dramatic heave, pinned the tentacles down. "Myth busted," he quipped, drawing roars of approval. Lyra watched from nearby, her blue flush a mix of pride and amusement, the bond humming with her affection. "You're incorrigible," she teased mentally, but her eyes promised rewards in the quiet hours to come. Yet, even in celebration, the Guardian's role called to them. The Archive's lore had revealed the Devourer not as a singular foe but a network of ancient entities, scattered across the galaxy like dormant seeds waiting for turmoil to sprout. Vexa, now a permanent advisor in the palace, convened late-night sessions in the strategy chambers, her holographic maps expanding to show distant anomalies, faint pulses in uncharted sectors that hinted at awakenings. "We sealed one rift, but the cosmos is vast," she said, her voice carrying the weight of eons. Lyra nodded, her hybrid essence allowing her to sense these echoes like distant thunder, while Kai's practical mind devised patrols, hybrid fleets equipped with fusion-amplified sensors, human ingenuity blending with alien mysticism to create unbreakable nets. The drama of their early days had evolved into a steady vigilance, awkward mishaps now fond memories that strengthened their resolve. In the quieter rhythms of rule, Kai and Lyra carved out spaces for themselves, retreats where the weight of empires lifted like mist at dawn. They often escaped to a secluded garden atop the palace, a haven of nebula vines that bloomed under artificial stars, their petals unfurling in soft luminescence. There, under the canopy, they lay entwined, her head on his chest, listening to the dual beats of their hearts sinking through the bond. "Do you ever miss the simplicity?" she asked one evening, her fingers tracing the scars on his arm, marks from Iscaria's beasts, now badges of their beginning. Kai chuckled softly, his hand weaving through her white hair. "Simplicity, like dodging patrols in a junk pod? Nah, this is better, though I could do without the council meetings that drag on like black hole debates." His humor drew her laughter, a sound that rippled through him like warmth from a sun, but beneath it, the bond revealed her deeper contentment, a peace forged from chaos. As months turned into a year, their alliance blossomed into a golden age for Zarathia and Velquar. Reforms swept through the empires, shared technologies that healed scarred planets, cultural exchanges that turned rivals into kin. Kai introduced human concepts like democratic forums, where common folk voiced ideas alongside nobles, leading to innovations that surprised even Vexa, simple irrigation systems amplified by void energy, feeding worlds once barren. Lyra's leadership shone, her pointed ears always attuned to the whispers of her people, her decisions infused with the empathy her father's reign had lacked. Together, they ventured on diplomatic missions to neighboring systems, their fused presence a symbol of unbreakable unity, turning potential conflicts into pacts sealed with shared feasts and stories. But the cosmos, ever capricious, tested them one final time. A massive anomaly erupted in a remote sector, larger than any before, drawing fragments like moths to a flame. Alarms blared across the Alliance, fleets mobilizing in a dramatic surge that echoed their first battles. Vexa joined them on the flagship, her presence a pillar of wisdom, as Lyra and Kai stood at the helm, the bond flaring to life. "This is the heart of it," Vexa revealed, her starry eyes grave. "The Devourer's core, awakened by ripples from our seal, defeated here, and the threat ends forever." The journey was fraught, storms of dark energy battering shields, illusions tempting crews with visions of paradise or peril. Kai's humor kept spirits high, quipping over comms about void tantrums as he coordinated strikes, while Lyra channeled her lineage, her hands glowing with power that wove protective veils. The confrontation unfolded in the Anomaly's maw, a swirling vortex of shadows where reality bent like light around a singularity. The fleet encircled it, amplifiers humming as Lyra stepped onto the ritual platform, Kai by her side, their hands clasped. Vexa guided the chant, voices from both empires joining in a harmonious crescendo. The bond surged, Kai's human tenacity anchoring Lyra's void essence, turning their love into a weapon of light. Fragments lashed out, coiling around ships in desperate fury, but the fusion repelled them, waves of energy exploding outward in brilliant cascades. In the climax, Lyra delved into the core's mind. Visions of ancient creations flooding her, guardians twisted by time, seeking oblivion. With Kai's strength bolstering her, she offered not destruction, but balance, a ritual that reformed the entity into a dormant watcher, its hunger sated by the harmony they embodied. As the vortex collapsed into a serene nebula, birthing new stars in its wake, cheers echoed across the fleet. Vexa embraced them both, her tears sparkling like diamonds. "You've done what I could only dream," turned shadow into dawn. The return home was triumphant, the empires forever changed, threats quelled into legend. Kai and Lyra, no longer just survivors but architects of peace, stepped into a future unburdened. Years passed in tranquil waves, their bond evolving with time. Children came, hybrids of human grit and alien grace, their laughter filling the palace with joy, pointed ears and stormy eyes a blend of worlds. Kai taught them mercenary tales spun into bedtime stories, while Lyra shared void lore as lullabies. Vexa, grandmother now, watched with quiet pride, the family a living seal against darkness. In their twilight, as stars wheeled overhead, Kai and Lyra sat in their garden, hands entwined, the bond a gentle hum. "From abandonment to this," she whispered, her white hair silvered but her beauty undimmed. He kissed her forehead, humor in his eyes. "Best revenge ever living well." Their story, whispered among the stars, inspired generations, a testament that love, fused in the fires of adversity, could conquer the void itself. And so, in the vast tapestry of the cosmos, where empires rose and fell like tides, Kai and Lyra's light endured, a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest reaches, humanity's spirit, entwined with alien wonder, could forge eternities. The end came not as a fade, but as a promise, adventures eternal, in hearts and heavens alike. And so, in the vast tapestry of the cosmos, where empires rose and fell like tides, Kai and Lyra's light endured, a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest reaches, humanity's spirit, entwined with alien wonder, could forge eternities. The end came not as a fade, but as a promise, adventures eternal, in hearts and heavens alike. Personally, I love how this story showcases human resilience blending with cosmic romance. It's inspiring and full of twists. What do you think? Would you fuse souls for revenge or love? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all for watching. Your likes, subs, comments, and shares are our biggest motivation to create even better stories. See you next time.